Welcome back to CryptosRUs. I'm George. We're all George. So, welcome to another Market Open stream. Today, let's look at what's going on with the U.S. market, which has opened in the red. What's going to happen with Bitcoin? And is Bitcoin a hyped up fraud and a pet rock? At least that's what one man thinks. Should we listen to him? Let's talk about that today as well. So good morning, guys. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So you can see the U.S. market not looking so good, although not terribly bad, but this was definitely led by Europe. Europe suffered pretty badly today, so U.S. is following. As for Bitcoin, still holding overall, still going sideways, 20,800. Can't complain, but we'll see what the rest of the day brings. But let's get started. What's happening? Well, I did mention about European stocks. Basically, every market in Europe fell today. And why did it fall? Well, again, more recession worries, right? Even though recession, I mean, it is definitely a worry, but the thing is, inflation is starting to come down. So a lot of central banks are becoming more dovish, right? We're getting to that turning point where they may stop cutting rates, or I mean, they may stop raising rates, right? And then maybe start cutting rates later this year. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. The U.S. economy is still very strong. Even though we're getting economic numbers that show the U.S. is, softening, right? That's what Powell wants, softening, but not collapsing, right? And we're getting that. So, U.S. economy is strong. Let's see how the U.S. fares over the next 6 months, whether or not we're going into a deeper recession or we're going to recover slightly from recession. So, I guess we'll wait and see. Wait and see. Ooh, what's something that's going on here? All right. What else is happening today? Well, you have companies, like I said, softening, but softening doesn't always equal good. Proctor and Gamble, which produces so many consumer goods, they took a hit on their revenue and profit, but guess what they're going to do? They're going to pass it on to the consumers. That's what they're going to do. So that's why, it's not always good, because if they do pass it on, what does that mean? That adds to inflation because prices are now higher, right? And you don't want that. We don't want that. No one wants that, right? So unfortunately, sometimes softening does lead to, I guess in a way, the softening leads to basically prices being passed on from businesses to consumers, which in essence will add on to our inflation numbers, which we don't want to see, right? So there's that as well. What else is there? Well, let's get to the man of the hour. This guy right here, Jamie Dimon, who has never, ever, ever, ever been a fan of Bitcoin, even though we know, oops, wrong one. Even though we know that JP Morgan is advising, especially their wealth division, they're advising wealthy clients to stock up on Bitcoin. JP Morgan itself also owns Bitcoin, and JP Morgan does have their own crypto, right? So even though you have a very, very anti-Bitcoiner, right? But he says one thing out in the open air, and then behind the scenes, his company is doing something differently. Let me play this for you guys. If I can get this going here, let me play this. Let me get this going. I gotta get this desktop. Okay, and I think I got this. Let me play this.
What we're talking about, we pretty much always have some crypto conversation with you. I'm just curious, because I don't think we've talked to you since...
I think all that's been a waste of time, and why you guys waste any breath on it is totally beyond me.
Because you just think the whole thing just is
going to zero?
Going to zero and it's fake?
Bitcoin itself is a hyped up fraud. It's a pet rock.
You're back to that? Going to zero?
Going to zero. So what do you make then of BlackRock and other firms that are investing in infrastructure?
No, that's different. Blockchain is a technology ledger system that we use to move information. We've used it to do overnight repo, intraday repo. We've used it to we've used it to move money.
Right.
So that is a ledger. That's a technology ledger type of thing that we think will be deployable.
Remember, we've
been talking about that for 12 years too, and very little's been done.
There's some tokens that I agree with you on, but Bitcoin's based on a distributed ledger. Yeah, but it has all the characteristics of a store of value. It's immutable. It's scarce.
Totally untrue. It's
21 million.
Well, yeah, really. How do you know it's going to stop at 21 million?
Because
I've mentioned this to people
Satoshi,
too. Everyone says that. Well, maybe it's going to get to 21 million, and Satoshi's picture is going to come up and laugh at you all and say, no.
There isn't a picture.
And by then, Satoshi will have taken out billions of dollars.
What was your reaction to the failure of FTX?
All right, I'm going to stop it right there. Well, it just goes to show he really doesn't understand, right? People make fun of things they don't understand. So you say, oh yeah, 21 million magically, Satoshi just come out, laugh at everyone, and raise the cap for Bitcoin. It can't happen. That's the thing. That's the thing that he doesn't understand or refuses to understand or plays dumb. Kind of like Kevin O'Leary. Remember back in the day in 2017 when he debated Anthony Pompliano? Same thing. He played dumb. He acted like he was very against Bitcoin, yet he was buying in 2017 already. And arguably, he may have bought even years ago because there was a clip of him being interviewed in 2013 or 2014 when he was talking good things about Bitcoin, right? So, I mean, it's one of those, one of those things you just don't know. Is he really this ignorant, or is he just playing dumb? Because really behind the scenes, what's happening is JP Morgan's buying by the billions, and they want to load up as much as they can, right? So no, Satoshi can't come back and just raise the limit from 21 million to whatever. Every single miner, basically, you need consensus. Over 90, I think for an upgrade to happen, you need to have 90% or 95% of the miners agree before that happens. So even, let's say in worst case scenario, let's say everyone now believes that Craig Wright is now the real Satoshi, right? And he's like, no, we need to raise the limit from 21 million to 40 million. Do you think any miner would actually go with that, would actually listen to him? The answer is no, right? So this is the thing. He just clearly doesn't understand. And I do think this whole thing is just, again, the farce, just a way to trick people into thinking, well, you can't trust this thing. You can't get in it. It's the equivalent of Pet Rock. Even though we use distributed ledgers, they have their own crypto, JP Morgan coin. Even though they're in the space already and they're buying up Bitcoin, advising their wealthiest clients to buy Bitcoin, he's still saying this on air. But here's the thing. Even though Jamie Dimon is taking, or it seems like he's on his high horse, right? JP Morgan, let's not forget, slammed with $1 billion fine just a few years ago because you know what they did? They tried to manipulate silver, okay? This is how bad they are, but yet they're around and they still operate as one of the largest banks on earth, right? It was proven they were manipulating silver, the price of silver. They kept it artificially suppressed on purpose, right? So if they were doing that, and they're capable of doing something like that, what about other precious metals? What about Bitcoin, right? Is it inconceivable that they're doing it to anything else? The answer is no. They could be, right? But this shows you what type of bank they really are. And if you thought 1 billion was large, what about the 13 billion from before for misleading investors during the housing market when they told everyone to go buy houses? right? I mean, JP Morgan has been fined billions upon billions upon billions over the last decade or so, okay? And yet, you know, business as usual. They got a slap on the wrist, no one goes to jail, nothing happens, and they continue to operate. This is how the banks are. This is basically a corrupt system protected by the Federal Reserve. Because when they get into true trouble, like what happened in 2008, when the housing bubble was going to destroy basically all banks on earth because every bank was over leveraged, right? The Federal Reserve came in and said, it's okay, take some money, you know, you'll be fine, right? It'd be the equivalency of, you know, ITrustCapital and Celsius and Voyager and FTX. It'll be equivalent of that Federal Reserve saying, hey guys, I know you over leverage. Let me throw a few $100 billion at you guys, make you guys solvent, and let's continue on. It would be the same thing. But rather than that, right, these companies have gone into bankruptcy. Some of these founders are going to jail, yet all the banks out there that did exactly the same thing in 2008, they all over leveraged and they had no money left and they were all going to fall, yet none of them really did. And they're still around, right? So think about that. Think about how unfair the system is, really. But anyways, gets me back to my point about Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is what these guys fear because they can't control it. They can't control it. They can't inflate it more, right? Which is why the Pet Rock holders, the hodlers, continue to grow. And we are nearing 1 million holders of Bitcoin that hold at least one, right? At least one Bitcoin and plus. So I think we're beyond the Pet Rock stage, right? And I believe we're beyond calling Bitcoin a fraud because literally no one is thinking that other than Jamie Dimon right now. So, yeah. Yeah. As for other good things, balance on exchanges continue to drop. We're at a 4-year low. Really, really low, guys. Really low from peak of 2020, somewhere in 2020, mid-2020. Since then, we have seen over 1 million Bitcoin disappear from the exchanges. 1 million Bitcoin, not $1 million, million. That's a lot, and it continues to drop more. So the scarcity thing definitely plays into it. Not only the halving event will cut the number of Bitcoin being produced per day, per year, going forward every 4 years, but the exchanges, the reserves on exchanges that's available for people to trade, right, is dropping. And who knows how low that's going to drop. Eventually, it'll get to a point where it's virtually impossible to trade Bitcoin because it's just too rare. It's going to get to that point. Also, recently, we know that we had a big short squeeze. If you measure it, it's one of the largest we have seen in recent times. The last big one was back in 2021 when Bitcoin went from 64,000 down to about 28,000, and then we had a huge run back to 69,000. Not nearly as high, but I think we're going to see a lot more of this, right? So this is just the start. So good things, good things. Oh, and here's, there's a lot of talk about CBDCs, but here's something interesting. The National Australian Bank is going to launch a stablecoin. They're going to launch a stablecoin on top of Ethereum and Algorand. Interesting. They're not calling it a CBDC. They're calling it a stablecoin that's backed by the Australian dollar. So if you have national banks, central banks now launching stablecoins on Ethereum, Can the SEC still declare that Ethereum is a US-based product and that they have control over Ethereum? Does that mean that the stablecoin from the National Australian Bank is a security? Makes you wonder, right? So Gary is trying the hardest he can to kind of come up with excuses or new things to declare Ethereum as a security, right? But if other countries are now using it for their settlements and for their stable coins, can he really say that anymore? The answer is no. And it would be silly for him to declare that Ethereum is an American-based project when it's distributed around the world, and there's many people and projects that are not in the US that are using it, right? But just want to throw that out there. But it's interesting. It's interesting. And then lastly, I don't know how many guys use OKX. I don't really hear anyone talk about using OKX, but I know Japan people may, because there's really little exchanges left in Japan. Anyways, CryptoQuant did a proof of reserves of OKX, and they have 7.5 billion in BTC ETH stablecoins, and this does not count their exchange native tokens. So they seem pretty legit. Outside of Binance, they're number 2, I believe, in terms of reserves, which is strange because I don't hear anyone ever talk about them using OKX, yet they're really big. I don't know which countries they lead in. I don't know. All right, guys. That's what I uncovered today. I was trying to look up, yesterday I made a big video about how the U.S. may go bankrupt today. The debt ceiling needs to be raised. Today's the deadline, and they always wait until the last second to kind of figure things out. If they don't raise the debt ceiling, the U.S. is in trouble, right? And that is supposed to be decided today. I was trying to find some kind of, some kind of time where they're going to discuss this. I can't find it. I don't know if they're just going to have emergency sessions all day to try to get it hashed out. But if they don't, it's going to be horrible. But the debt ceiling has always been raised every single time, so I don't expect anything differently. But if they don't, it'll be a natural disaster for the U.S. All right, let's do some, I don't have CMC pulled up. Let's pull that up. All right, let's do some Q&A. All right. A little technical issues this morning. The browser's looking weird. Hold on, I gotta get some stuff set up here. All right. Dan, I know you got a couple of super chats I didn't answer. When the big dogs say BTC is fraud, that's when I buy. It's funny that they talk about fraud when all they do is lie for a living. I mean, yes. Especially JP Morgan. They really shouldn't point fingers at anyone. They've been caught with money laundering, with scamming investors, with price manipulation, right? They're probably the worst. They have been fined the most, yet they're still trying to say Bitcoin is the fraud, right? Like, Crypto Butts, good morning from Texas. Was it fair to say the last pump in crypto is caused because of cheap credit? I'm looking to buy in again, but waiting for prices to go lower. What catalyst should I wait for? Dan, have you not taken advantage of 2022 or even early 2023, where we were at 15, 16,000? What lower price are you looking for? If the U.S. defaults, today, yeah, it'll probably go lower. If someone big like DCG goes under, we could possibly go lower again. But I wouldn't be waiting much longer. We've been in a downtrend for over a year, and this is usually the point when Bitcoin flips around. If you've been paying attention, I've been showing so many charts and models and metrics showing that we are turning around as we head closer to the next halving event. Okay, what else? Went down a rabbit hole on Aptos for my portfolio. Found out FTX Ventures owns a little more than 10% of ICO, which is 101 million app tokens. The funds were FTX customer funds. That's why it didn't crash like Sol. I don't know if that's the reason. Yeah, one of the things I did see early on was FTX invested in Aptos. So that turned me off a little bit too. But as for what they're going to do with the tokens, right now they can't sell it. But will they sell it if FTX, how they recover like $5 billion of their, they said they recover $5 billion worth of liquid assets, including crypto. They could include Aptos in there, right? So will they sell it later? Possibly. They could still sell off a lot of Sol too. They own a lot of Sol. So they probably just didn't sell anything yet. Dan, you're right about fiscal responsibility of the perception of that. The debt ceiling gives you that perception of fiscal responsibility. I agree. If the lawmakers don't really care and they really feel like they could just keep raising it infinitely, why even have it? Just remove it altogether. Scalable. I like your perspective on the latest medium article from Unicrypt. If it's not too much to ask, seems like one of those companies being profitable and sharing revenue in the bear market. Genuinely interested. Why medium article? And I have no idea what Unicrypt is. So it's a really small cap. A really small cap with almost no volume. 108,000 last 24 hours. I'm going to skip. I'm going to skip looking at them. They're just too small right now. Are you a fan of IOTA? Super low right now. IOTA is in a transition. They came out the testnet chain, and they're coming out the EVM compatible chain. They're going to be around. They have plenty of money in the bank. They raised a ton of money in the ICO round. But they're kind of stuck in the middle, right? Like they're a DAG. They were in payments, and I think they still are, but they're transitioning to hosting apps and becoming EVM compatible. I think you got to give them time. Whether or not they're going to build enough momentum to push them forward, we'll see. We'll see. The debt is too large to ignore now. I mean, yesterday, let's see. Yeah, I pulled this up yesterday. I mean, it's true. You notice since the 70s, after the U.S. was taken off the gold standard, that's when things really accelerated. And it's been going up like this. Like, this is, again, I don't have a good answer for this. I don't think anyone does. Everyone just speculating. At what point, like, how high does this need to go before we run into real problems? If this runs into 40 trillion, 50 trillion, 100 trillion, is that going to affect us? I would say in terms of inflation, yes, the U.S. the dollar buying power will have gone down massively if this hits 100 trillion, right? So there's that. But at what point does the whole thing just collapse upon itself, right? Hopefully, I won't ever find out. Hopefully, my kids won't ever find out. Hopefully, it's generations from now. But this debt continues to go up by a lot every year. It's funny, in 2022, I saw a headline saying, oh, yeah, the U.S. debt went down by like 40% or something. But we were still over by 1.5 trillion in spending. And the reason why it went down is because the year before, we were at like 3 trillion in spending. But we're still, this is over. This is not like equal. We're nowhere close to equal. We're trillions over every single year. So this keeps going up. This is why Bitcoin was created. This is why people are flocking to Bitcoin, because after all the banks got bailed out from being too greedy and too over leveraged in 2007, right? They were given a free pass. That's why Satoshi created Bitcoin, because of distrust in banks, in the Fed, in central banks, in governments, right? That's why we have Bitcoin. And that problem only got worse since 2008. You would figure everyone, because at that time, that $800 billion bailout was the largest ever in history. Now, the government can print trillions every year, and it's business as usual, right? It's like become the norm. It's like, okay, just issue more bonds and print some more money. At some point, it's all gonna come crashing down. Where's Tesla at? I have Tesla up. Tesla up. Hey, Tesla up today. Wow, they were really down in the pre-market. So Coinbase is up. Hey, yesterday Coinbase had a horrible day. So the fact that they're up, Tesla's up, I feel like Nasdaq's go flip into the green then. Well, now Coinbase down a little bit, but still way better than yesterday. They were like negative 7% yesterday. There's not enough tax to pay back. Of course not. The U.S. can't collect enough taxes to pay the spending. So what do? They borrow money. How does the U.S. borrow money? By issuing bonds. Now, when you borrow money, you got to pay interest, right? You have to incentivize people to give you their money. So there's interest on those bonds. And those interest payments are massive because of how much bonds how much bonds the U.S. have issued. And here's the thing. Other countries are still buying U.S. bonds because the dollar is still seen as the strong currency, right? So when other countries are fearful, they buy U.S. bonds, U.S. dollars. And they're guaranteed to get their money back because it's triple rated, right? But what if it's not triple rated anymore? What if that rating goes down to double A or single A, or it no longer has an A bond, right? Then that would put the U.S. in a death spiral, because then we can't borrow any more money, and that would be absolutely disastrous. That's why the debt ceiling today will be raised, because no one wants to see the AAA bond fall down. If it falls down, it may not be stopped, and that would that would essentially bring everything down. Ray K said, I withdrew all my funds from Coinbase. I'm not using them again. What happened? What happened, man? It's just that guy. What if the U.S. is printing because they will switch to that U.S. crypto token? No, that doesn't stop it. You're just talking about a digital dollar. They're just making a new dollar that's digital. That's more verifiable, basically. They want to be able to verify all the transactions. That's the reason why they want to go to digital dollar. It's the same. They're just going to. It's just a new version of the dollar. That's all. That's all. Stellar making its presence known in the WEF meetings in Davos. What do you think about banking the unbanked using XRP? Sure. I don't know about making this presence known because they are in a position where they really don't know what they want to do. Okay, they want to be a bridge currency like XRP, but they also want to be a stablecoin issuer. They also want to be in smart contracts. They're all over the place. Any crypto can help the unbanked be banked. It doesn't have to be a Stellar. Doesn't mean it won't be Stellar. If they lead that, great, but they're not leading anything right now. Richard, I don't really have any thoughts on Flare. I mean, it's on the XRP ledger. It's supposed to be like, you know, like it was very hyped up because it was supposed to be a way for XRP ledger to enter the dApp space utilizing Flare, but Flare is their own project. There's some integration with XRP because it's on the ledger, but they're really just, you know, they're focusing on dApps, focusing on interoperability with other chains. They're promising, but very early, and they just airdropped 25% of the tokens to XRP holders. I don't know if you guys noticed, there's no more squeaking from my chair. Since so many people complained, I finally tightened up all the bolts. Even though I don't think the squeaking was that bad to begin with, but no more squeaking. Did you see that DJet has differentiated itself to over-collateralized stablecoin instead of algorithmic? I think it's still algorithmic, but it's collateralized, over-collateralized. I'll have to look into it more. No, because I might be confused because IOHK also is coming out with over-collateralized stablecoins. A lot of them are over-collateralized, but the thing is, like the regulators, they don't want to see over-collateralized. They want to see backed, like one-to-one issuance, right? Like you have $1 of stablecoin and $1 of USD backing it. They want to see that backing, right? Over-collateralized with other different tokens doesn't really solve that, because if other tokens fall, right, then it's not, there's no relationship there. So I guess I have to understand more what they're doing, because if you're backing with stable coins, then sure, you could say that that makes sense. But if you're backing with, I don't know, with ADA, for example, right? You're backing with ADA tokens. ADA falls 50%, then what happens with the collateralization, right? So it gets confusing. Maker is like that. Maker and the DAI token is based on collateralization. Like you put down collateral, you can mint DAI, right? And you could burn DAI to get a collateral back. But there has been times where the collateral falls so much, they just liquidate everyone. That has happened before. Chair repair is one of G's side hustles. Hey, don't make fun of it. Yeah, we're getting a little momentum. 20,900 soon. Maybe right back to 21,000. Like I said, I've been saying this for like the last week or so. I'd be perfectly okay if we consolidate here, right, at this level for quite some time. Because we have come up really fast. We broke through some previous levels, right? Consolidating here, we are going sideways, right? This is good. Lets things reset. Cool things down, right? And get ready for the next leg up. So we're doing that right now. We're doing that. Miles, I appreciate it. I don't know what your question is, but I appreciate your support. Charlie says, I started last year $50 DCA every day. Wow, every day is a lot. Now I have over 1 Bitcoin. Congratulations, you are now a whole coiner. It's a big deal. Good job. Good job. Gina is ISO 20022 ready. Is it possible that money will have to be printed again due to debt ceiling and inflation will rise again because of this? Yes. Yes. So here's my understanding of it. All right. So let's say you have your operating budget is like, I don't know, for the U.S., well, it's 31 million is not enough. But so 31 million is your operating budget. Let's say you collect, I don't know, 10 billion from, or 20 trillion from taxes, right? So you have like 21 trillion left. So how do you collect that money? Well, you could sell bonds, which I don't know how much we sell, but it'll be in the trillions, right? Let's say we sell, I don't know, 15, 16 trillion dollars worth of bonds, which essentially is just us, U.S. borrowing, okay? So think about that, because we're creating bonds out of thin air, selling it, and basically they're IOU, saying, you know, lend us money, and we'll give you interest, and we'll eventually pay you back the money that you gave us. But then what about the remaining? What about if there's like 5 or 6 trillion left, and you can't collect it from taxes and you can't collect it from bonds? Where do you get that money from? Well, then it's time to spin up the money printer and print up another $5 to $6 trillion. That's how I understand it. The money printer is there because we can't get enough. We can't borrow enough and we can't tax enough. That's why we spin up the money printer and print more. And when you print more, it adds to more dollars in this world circulation, and then that increases inflation, and it decreases the buying power of every dollar, because your dollar is now worth less because the percentage of dollars in circulation went up. In layman's terms, that's how I understand it, right? So it's a vicious cycle, and as our spending goes higher and higher every year, for some reason, our spending does go higher, right? Maybe because of inflation, because inflation artificially moves all prices higher, so our spending goes higher because of it, right? It's a vicious cycle that continues on forever. And where will it end? I don't know. May end when this deficit hits 100 trillion, 200 trillion, you know, we don't know. That's why if you want to preserve your buying power, you want to preserve your wealth, you have to invest in assets that appreciate faster than inflation. Inflation is robbing you 2 to 3% normally every single year. So you have to hold on something that grows faster than 2 to 3% a year. If you don't, well, that's how much you're losing. And if that compounds in like 10 years, you lost half of your buying power. You don't want that. So that's why you need to invest in assets, right? Traditionally, real estate has been really good at appreciating, but real estate is now so high. Can real estate really double from here? It's going to take a while. It's not like before where it doubles like every 10 years. It's not like that anymore. And you look at equities, of course, it's still there, right? A lot of high flyers. And, of course, you have Bitcoin and crypto. And nothing has outperformed Bitcoin in the last 10 years. Not even close. And crypto is also in there, right? Miles, I escaped Ukraine and bought Bitcoins. Congratulations. Interest is 3.6 trillion. Is that really the case? I'm sure, because we sell so many bonds, right? We had to pay interest on it. So one of the things that was speculated or theorized is that if the U.S. does not increase the debt ceiling, so then Janet Yellen of the Treasury Department, she has to figure out what to cut, what she can't pay. And it's been speculated she may not pay some of the interest that is owed. And if that happens, that's horrible. Really, really bad. Because then the credit rating of our bonds go down. Then that means other countries will stop buying U.S. bonds because they don't trust that they're going to get their interest or their money back. And then we're going to be in real problem. We're going to be in real hurt because then the U.S. has to spin up that money printer a lot more, and inflation is going to get a lot worse, and then it's a vicious cycle. Lighten. I'm not a smoker, but thanks for the offer. Thanks for the offer. U.S. weekly jobless claims falls unexpectedly. Initial claims for state unemployment benefits dropped 15,000 to a seasonally adjusted 190 for a week. Economists polled by Reuters forecasted 214 claims. So, well, that's not good. It's good and not good, right? So it's good that there's less people asking for unemployment benefits, right, for last week. That's awesome. That means people are working. That's what you want. You want people to be working. You don't want jobless claims to go up. You don't want unemployment, benefits to be rising. But this is bad because people want to see this worse because of Powell and the rate hikes that are coming. So, we're still in that kind of screwed up scenario where good news is actually bad news and bad news is good news. I don't know. The more you learn about how the financial system works, at least the more you know about how the Fed and the Treasury and the U.S. as a whole works, the less you think it makes sense, and the more you think it's all going to collapse. Honestly, and I'm picking in America because I am in America, but I'm sure if you studied how the UK works, how Canada works, how Australia works, how every country on earth pretty much all works the same way. That's why there's inflation. That's why inflation every year, and why there's a central bank, and it's the same thing. Every country does the same thing, basically, and at some point, it's all going to come crashing down. But then, is it really going to crash down? Because every country has their own money machine. So they could just print more money to support the crash, right? So what is it? ever going to burst? I don't know. Maybe never. Maybe never. Maybe this will go up 10x, 290 trillion, and it still doesn't mean anything, right? Who knows? Who knows? All right, guys, I'll leave you with that. Bitcoin is still holding strong. JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon, still no fan of Bitcoin, but that's okay. They're the biggest fraudsters in history, so why should we listen to anything they say, right? All right, I'll see you guys tonight, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Take care. Bye-bye.